I mean, when we started the show, we were like, hey, let's help grow the sport in the U.S. and let's make it inclusive and welcoming. Like, that was from the beginning. We're like, hey, if we're going to do anything, that's our North Star. Like, that's what we're trying to achieve, is just to help grow the sport. And I think we have to change it, because we're like, yeah, let's help grow the sport in the U.S. But now every time I say that, I'm like, world?
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 150 of the show.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys. This is not Chip. This is not Chris. This is Lars. And in today's episode, the 150th, the tables are turned, and I get to deep dive with Swimrun's favorite team. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about their endurance journey. So let's find out what makes them tick. Without further ado, let's dive in.
We're doing something really different. We're just handing over the keys to the car to our good friend of the pod, huge supporter of us, Lars Finanger, who's going to be the guest host for this episode. Welcome to the show, Lars.
Guys, thank you. And today it's extra special because you get to be the folks who are being interviewed, which I think is I think everyone who listens is licking their chops right now.
Well, it's funny because when we first started the show way back when, I think we had a couple episodes out, and you were like, hey, do you guys want to take over our Odyssey stories? And we were like, do they actually know what they're getting themselves into by doing this? And you were like, yep, have at it, Haas, like have a good time. So it's funny now definitely the tables are turned, because do whatever you want with this.
Well, absolutely. And, I know that, the Swimrun journey starts in 2018, but, you guys always do such a great job of really going further back than that with the folks who you interview. And, we're going to have some fun today. So, I remember back to when you interviewed me, and you've done this with others, but, we want to find out a little bit more about your sporting background and your sporting journey. So, where were you guys before pre-Swimrun?
Pre-Swimrun. Well, this will be I guess this is a good segue into how Chris and I kind of met, because I think that feels like a good time to take this. So I had, I played baseball throughout high school and into junior college a little bit. And then a similar story to everybody else, get into college, no more exercise, tons of drinking, all sorts of stuff. And then finally I get another kind of bug up my ass about, I want to get in shape, so I want to start running again. So I just started running, and it was literally like, could I make it to the end of the block kind of situation. And then, lo and behold, 9 months later, I'm like, where's a triathlon club I can go join? I'm looking for triathlons. And
He joined the wrong club.
I joined the wrong club off the bat. There's two clubs in San Francisco, and I joined the wrong one. And
you want to name names?
Yeah, the SF Tri Club.
Yeah, SF Tri Club.
SF Tri Club. And I mean, nothing wrong with them. It's just the joke. And didn't really hit it off. Didn't make any connections there. And then the next year, I switched to the Golden Gate Club because going up Hawk Hill, which is the first big hill after you go north over the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a very sort of traditional triathlete cyclist weekday early morning ride. 6 o'clock out the door, do a Hawk Hill. It's a little 20-mile loop. You get 1,500 feet of elevation, like a good way to spend 90 minutes. And I had seen Chris and one of our other friends up there a few times, and finally they said something to me, because I never really am that outgoing, I guess. And then Chris came over. He's like, "Hey, we've seen you. You like, what do you do?" And they started asking me questions, and then I kind of ended up just running into you more and more. I feel like at a couple events.
So my recollection of it is a little bit different. So around that time, I would self-proclaimed king of Hawk Hill. Like every week, I'd be on that thing doing a bunch of hill rips, regardless of conditions.
Rolling the Strava.
Yeah, it was crazy.
All for Strava glory.
Yeah, all for Strava and just like whatever. But yeah, so Chipper was in the wrong club, and we had a mutual friend that he met at a race that we were actually the same race we were at. It was Folsom Swimrun.
Yeah.
And,
Folsom triathlon.
Yeah, Folsom Triathlon. Yeah, right. Swimrun, that was just this year. So essentially what happened was our mutual friend AJ, he was like, oh, there's this joint Golden Gate SF Tri ride that's happening.
Oh, that's right.
And they were doing some ride, and we all had our Tri bikes, and we convinced Chipper to just ride with us instead of SF Tri. And we did Hawk Hill. I mean, did we do Hawk Hill? No, I think we skipped Hawk Hill, and we just did like a TAM summit on Tri bikes, which is 5,000 feet of climbing and just really windy. Anyway, probably not advisable for a Tri bike. But anyway,
maybe okay, the uphill, but how the heck do you go downhill?
Yeah, it was
that's
a lot of praying.
Yeah, it's pretty sketchy. But so from there, we basically convinced Chipper to switch clubs, and we started training for a 50K, our first 50K.
That's
together.
right.
Because AJ and me had agreed to, was like, hey, what's the next stupid thing we could do? It's like, oh, first 50K sounds like fun. It's right in our backyard. It was the
North Face Endurance Challenge, 50K, yeah. That was 2013, I think.
While back. Yeah.
So now about 10 years ago. And then pretty much since then, we found out like me and Chris only live like a mile and a half away from each other in San Francisco. We sort of had a lot of the same races, and we enjoyed each other's company, and our paces were the same and everything, or more or less the same. So we just kind of hit it off.
Chipper pretty quickly became my absolute favorite person to ride with, because it would just be like just entertainment like the whole time. It would just be back and just like go like whatever, making fun of people, making fun of ourselves, whatever. But it was just nonstop. Like we would do these
a lot of talking,
random like 100-mile like these century rides like on a Tuesday. It'd just be like nonstop.
You
like,
also looked like you'd be a pretty good wind block. Also.
Yeah. So we just started just riding together and stuff, and just doing events together, and like when he was doing his first 50-miler, I paced him. When I was doing mine, he paced me, and it was just kind of like became a thing. So really, when, as Chipper mentioned, we lived about a mile, 10 minutes from each other in San Francisco. Now we live in Novato. And we still live about distance. It's almost exactly 2 miles, but still. So it's just kind of funny that obviously up here we essentially have each other to train with more than anything. And that's kind of, I think, where our friendship, which was already pretty solid, I think, became like more of a brotherhood.
Yeah.
So am I getting the years right? So we're talking circa 2012. You became endurance athletes.
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of we both have similar journey. Like we were both kind of on the former Fatties Club and started getting back into fitness.
Bods.
Yeah.
Or is this before dad though? Yeah, that's the problem.
It was pre-dad, dad
bods before dads.
Yeah. I think that's
just post college then
at that point. But yeah, so we were both kind of finding our fitness, and actually did our first marathon like around the same time, even though it was a different race. And then, so I think that's where the endurance, the same thing, like I did a marathon. I was like, oh, I really like swimming and biking. Triathlon makes sense. I actually had done a triathlon in high school way back when. Am
I getting this right? Were you actually from the East Coast then?
Yeah. So I spent my formative years in the Boston area. So essentially, and I played all the sports.
Like what? Tell us a little bit about your sporting background.
Yeah, so
Chipper was a baseball player.
Yep, I was a baseball player. As any, red-blooded Puerto Rican, you're pretty much just drafted into your local town's little league. And so I was really into baseball, wanted to be a professional baseball player, did everything I could to make that happen, and I failed. But
I wouldn't say that. You got drafted.
It's true, but I ended up not taking it.
Hey, so let's really quick here, because I played baseball as well. So let's talk positions here.
Yeah, so I was shortstop and pitcher.
And I just pitched.
Okay.
Yeah, Chipper just
pitched. And I was the one bag.
Oh, yeah.
Man, awesome. Well, you're lanky. That's why you're over there.
Well, I was a lefty.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. So
wow, that's cool. So you got drafted. Chipper, did you get drafted?
No. There's a great story with my group of high school friends that I'll shorten it up. So Chipper comes from Chipper Jones, Hall of Fame Braves third baseman, great baseball player, borderline, we won't talk about him
borderline
as just
great person.
Yeah, great person, whatever. So we had a really good kid who got drafted out of high school. So there would be scouts and college people at our high school whenever this guy would play. So it's like every time he would like wind up, like all these radar guns would lift up to see how fast he was throwing. So I probably got a lot of exposure, but my friends were grabbing a couple wings at Hooters one night, and there was a guy with a Braves hat and a Braves polo, and they were overhearing him talk, and my friend started talking to the guy, and they're like, "Oh, what school did you go to?" And my friends are saying, "Oh, Wood Creek," and they go, "You know what? They sent me out there one day to see this kid. They said he was going to be good. He was garbage. He was horrible." And they're like, "Really? Who was it?" He goes, "I don't know, some kid like Nicodemus." And my friend's like, "Holy shit, that's our buddy. Can you just call him and tell him the story again?" So I must have got
really
shelled.
Out there.
I must have got shelled one game when there was a Brave scout in the audience, like similar to Chris. Lifelong dream, would love to grow up to play on the Atlanta Braves, but I had my one chance and I blew it pretty hard. I guess
you didn't even know you blew it.
Didn't even know I blew it. Though.
Couldn't the other chipper have called in a favor for you?
Yeah, we got to stick together. Us chippers got to stick together.
Yeah, too funny.
So Chris, you on the East Coast, then you got drafted.
Yeah. So in high school, I was
your
kind of your proto jock. So I played soccer and football in the fall, basketball in the winter, and then baseball and track in the spring. So I was just all over the place.
Busy.
So just always super active. Kind of stayed that way in college, and the ultimatum was you got to go to college or else. So I went to college, and
did sports take get put on the back burner once you were in college? Or
actually, I was still pretty active. I stayed in pretty good shape. I played on the rugby team. I did a bunch of kind of like random sports and just did a bunch of stuff. Got into rock climbing for a bit. It wasn't until law school where literally like the wheels on everything fell off for me. Where I'm sitting there first year law student. Anyone who's a lawyer can relate to this, and I'm sitting there. And I'm just like trying to learn torts, and you just have this existential crisis. You're like, what the fuck is a tort?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like halfway into this class. Why am I learning about torts? So I pretty much stopped everything I was doing, which in hindsight was the stupidest idea ever. I just stopped working out, doing everything, just started just studying all the time. So, I gained a bunch of weight and was just turned into like a sedentary person until a couple of years after law school where I started getting it back.
Well, you lost me on the first T in torts, but that's about where my intelligence stops, but or at least my schooling. But at what point did you go out to the West Coast and end up in SF?
Yeah, well, it was right after law school. My now ex-wife, she got into a fellowship program at UCSF, and it was like at that time I was living in New York City. It was either stay in New York City or come out here. So came out here. My parents live in Napa, St. Helena area, so it was basically a way to kind of come back home.
So that's really incredible, guys. And Chip or Chris, I'd like to think that all those sports that you played in your previous iterations probably have come in handy in very interesting ways along the way. You can always draw back on those experiences, right?
Yeah.
When you're out in the middle of a...
I mean, one thing I think about a lot is, a lot of those sports, for the most part, were team sports. And getting really into triathlon, it's a time trial solo. It's a very solo thing. I found my community in the triathlon club that Chipper and I were both a part of. And for me, like, that was always what was missing. And one of the things, I guess, from even subconsciously, I was like searching for. So that's where something like Swimrun, where it's like, when I read about it, and I mentioned this before on the show, on this coffee table book called The World's Toughest Endurance Challenges that my wife gave to me for Christmas a bunch of years ago. And I'm just like, oh my God, these events are crazy. And I come across Attila, right? And I'm like, wait, it's a team thing? It's like, so there was just a lot of things that were, that I found very, very attractive about kind of doing something like that, kind of different than being in a tri club where, yeah, you're training with all your buddies, but then on race morning, you're like,
see you
good
later.
luck, buddy. Have a great race.
I'm going to drop you on the swim.
So was that, yeah, absolutely. Was that the first time when you were flipping through that book? And I got to imagine you read every you read between the lines. You read, every line being a lawyer, right?
If he knows about torts,
I can only imagine
there.
Exactly. But was that? So that was the first time that you ever heard of Otelo. Yep. Obviously, when was the first time that you really even gave any kind of consideration to doing a swim run?
Oh, easy. So I, I know about YouTube, right? So basically, as soon as right after I read it in that book, I was like thinking about it. I was telling people about it, and go to YouTube, see a bunch of hype videos, get the usual sort of indoctrination into what it is, and just started looking around for races, dude. And the only race at the time was the first Casco Bay. It was the first Casco Bay.
Oh, we were around by then. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like the next year.
So
Christmas.
You're talking 2016 then is kind of around that time frame. Mm-hmm. Well, if you guys don't mind, let's jump to 2018 really quick because, I thought this was really interesting. I was doing some research and looking at some past race results, and I remember California Swimrun, and I've heard this before on the show that you guys that was your first race. But why don't you tell everyone what your team name was and a little bit about that experience? Because I don't know if this is a big reveal, but it wasn't the Low Tide Boys.
No, it wasn't the Low Tide Boys.
Was late to the game.
Yeah, we. I don't know. I mean, people can tell if you pay attention to Low Tide Boys. We just have a lot of ideas, and some of them are good, some of them are just whatever. But we got a lot of them. There's no shortage of ideas around here.
Yeah.
And we were just coming up, and Chris and I have done stuff kind of like professionally. Like we did a little consulting on the side because we both do a little bit of like marketing and stuff like that. So we have been working together and having different ventures, so to speak. I guess very lightweight, type of stuff. But I think at the time we just thought, Thunder Goats is like a really cool name. So that was the name we went with for the
we had this sort of like consulting digital marketing kind of agency that we came up with on a run.
Yeah.
And we're coming up with names.
Lots of great ideas come up on runs, right?
For some reason, like the Thunder Goats stuck, and actually the logos, if anyone listening wants some of these stickers, we still have some. It was like the Thundercats logo, but it was a goat.
Is this the throw up, like the neon lights, almost like a Mr. Beast type logo?
No, but we did have we took the Aladdin Sane cover,
the David Bowie album,
David Bowie cover, and instead of David Bowie it was like a goat with like the
thunderbolt across his face.
These are primetime designs. Obviously, we made stickers and stuff, but I
mean, if those pop up into the merch shop on your site,
you think they'll go quick?
Just want to, maybe
we'll just give them to people.
We'll give them away. But we actually
maybe some takers at this point.
Yeah, we did that. We were racing as the Thunder Goats in 2018, and then for Catalina, because we registered before the Low Tide Boys existed. I think we were Team Dad Bod.
Yeah.
That was our team name. And then we had actually had it changed to the Low Tide Boys once that happened.
As soon as we came up with the idea for the show, and we were already kind of thinking of changing our name because we saw this meme about the Low Tide Boys that was so funny. It was like, oh my God, we got to change our name in the Low Tide Boys. And it's like, we should just call our show that.
Like, oh yeah, that's a good idea too.
So was this an idea that kind of came to fruition on a run or a ride that you guys had? I mean, it sounds like a lot of good ideas or bad ideas depending on the way you look at it.
Well, I'll let Chipper tell it because after 2018, it was Chipper's idea to kind of like record. Chipper had been doing a podcast for a while with one of his high school buddies, and it was his idea to kind of like put something, I guess, like on paper, so to speak.
Yeah. So actually, after that 2018 Casco, when we did release this, we'll have to pull the episode. We'll link it in the show notes. What number it was? I'm going to say one in the one teens.
Just keep telling.
That's my guess. And I have all the podcast equipment, like Chris said. Me and my friend have a long-standing podcast that we've done for years, and I was looking online. I'm like, dude, there's nothing on the internet about swim running. I'm like, let's just record it and put it on. We put it on SoundCloud. So he came over one night. We just sat at the table and kind of walked through it, and that was that. It went away. We didn't do anything with it. We just recorded it, put it on SoundCloud. I don't even think I checked it again. I don't know how many downloads or listens. Probably barely any.
Episode 117.
Boom! I was on it.
You were close.
So are you saying there's an episode that hasn't even been released?
Oh no, that's the one we released.
We did release that one.
So
eventually.
Chipper was like, "Oh man, we still have this race report from back
the
way back when."
Casco.
And so we heard it to make sure it wasn't just like ridiculous or whatever. And we were like, actually, it's really interesting because you can kind of see we were already thinking in Swimrun in terms of like, we need to be able to describe this experience for people because it's such a random kind of thing that like you have to be able to tell the story and just kind of educate people a little bit while trying to entertain them at the same time. And I think, for that race, we were just like, it was just so
Let's
wild.
Just do
we
it.
just
Yeah.
had to like I said, kind of put something down on paper.
And this episode 1 that you're talking about is your good friend Kelly O'Mara, who I remember her because I used to work at Triathlete Magazine as well, and she was, of course, the editor, longtime editor-in-chief over at Triathlete. There was something about Triathlete. All the editors had done swim runs or Otelo for a while there, and actually Chris Foster still does. So we're in good hands with the triathlon editorial crew. But maybe talk about that a little bit. So here you go. Well, actually, I want to hear you guys tell it. But so you have this experience, and what about that 2018 California swim run race? And then the subsequent Casco Bay really solidified the fact that wow, we may have found our next calling here. Just athletically, like this is something we might want to do.
Yeah. We signed up for California Swimrun because we had the Casco Bay 2018 on the books, and we're like, man, this looks pretty serious. We better try this sport out before we like go over there. And,
right? No, it was like, oh, there's a race in California, like
we
in
have
March.
To go, yeah.
Oh, we should just fly down and do it, just to kind of like there's an opportunity to try it. So it was almost like it was a package deal.
Yeah. So we did that race, and it took us like an hour and 20 or an hour and 30 minutes or something. It was only maybe 8 to 12 Ks total. We had a blast doing it, and then we're like, immediately after we're like, thinking of all these things to improve. But I remember doing Casco, and I mean, obviously our approach was a lot different than how we're approaching things now. It was very much like Chris and I, we would do this for these 50 milers, these 200-mile bike rides, any like crazy feats of endurance that we would do. It was just like, we're just going to do it. We're going to take our time. We're going to have fun and enjoy hanging out with each other. And that's how we approach Casco. Probably on like, 3,000 yards a week swimming too, if that. But I remember very distinctly like doing that race that took us close to 7 hours.
6.5 hours. Yeah.
6.5?
Yeah, 6.5 hours.
Okay. I remember,
and you were near, hey, I'm not poking fun at you here, but you were near the back half of.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And I only say that because now, and we'll jump forward in a little while here, but now you're always flirting with podium. So, it's an impressive,
we're the best
trajectory.
No, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think, Chipper was just alluding to this. It's like when doing that race, I mean, there was a point where we were like chit chat and all this stuff, and then it kind of got real.
Yeah, like okay,
where I was like, by my
bit.
estimation, we should be almost done here. And Chipper's like, I'm not even on my second paddle. So it was it turned into a thing where, as Chipper mentioned, we're usually just like shooting the shit and just having a good banter and just either coming up with business ideas or whatever, like just doing all kinds of stuff. And this was really one of the first times where I was like, all right, you know what? We actually got to do some work here. Yeah. So let's just like start kind of like applying some tactic of some kind. At that point, not even really knowing what that was. And I think that part of it was also really interesting because we crossed the finish line and we were both like, oh my God, like what the hell was that? And then it's like, let's do this again. And our plan was to do Orcas the next year because that race, I mean, that's just my style of, I love mountain running and all that stuff. So for me, that was always.
We're talking 2019 season because you've just done Casco Bay 2018. Looking forward to Orcas 2019. What happened in 2019?
Well, we both had our second child.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2018, our kids would have been between 2 and 3, our first daughters, and yeah, we were definitely like kind of on the dad bod training plan kind of thing. I mean,
someone's got to be watching kid number 1 while mama's taking care of kiddo the newborn, right?
Yeah. So 2019 wasn't really. I can't even. I'm sure we did stuff. I'm sure we did stuff, but it was a lot of local trail halves or things like that. But
so then near the end of the year, then we started to notice, and it came kind of fast and furious. But starting in, I want to say late November, maybe December, the swimrun world started getting enlightened to these just hilarious memes that just started poking out seemingly out of nowhere. But so explain the memes, because they predated the launch of episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But who came up with the memes? And I mean, you do these damn near every day for.
I mean, it's kind of like
2 years.
It's changed over the years, I will say that. But
I mean, I think it's the type of thing where, when we're coming up with ideas, we'll just try to it'll just turn into improv. Is like, oh, well, what about this? Well, what about that? What about, and we both enjoy a good meme, and there still aren't any swimrun memes except for us. But we know there was this account that we loved. It was ultra running memes, or I forget what.
Yeah, ultra running memes.
Ultra running memes.
So super funny trail running
inside
memes.
Baseball, like a photo of a tree with like and then with little toilet paper things on it. It's like, oh, what ultra runners see kind of thing. And it was just gold memes. So we're like, oh, we should start doing that. And I felt like I had a lot. I really enjoy memes. I felt like
we did have
a lot we could contribute.
Up. Yeah.
Whether it was on pull buoys or whatever. So it was all part of that same, I guess, like, origin story where we're sitting in the garage thinking about, oh, you know what, we should just do a show, and Chipper has all the gear. So it's like, oh, well, it's actually kind of turnkey. Oh, what are we going to call it? Oh, and we should also do a meme cage as like a quote unquote listener acquisition strategy.
Yeah, that was our growth strategy. But I mean,
there's certain things that you guys say, and when you go to your website as well, you can tell, like, professionally, you are involved in the media industry or, website industry. Everything looks so professional, so polished, but yet so easy. It's the way you guys are, really. You personally, like, you're extremely, obviously, Chris. Chipper, I know that you're, probably well studied as well, but like, you have these massive, educational backgrounds, yet you come across just so easy to everyone, and you're very easy to talk to and conversational, and you bring out the best in everyone, which is why I really think that you've just been probably not probably, but really the greatest thing that Swimrun, has had from kind of the.
Come on, Lars.
Well,
no, I don't think I'm the only one, to notice this. It's really, you kind of launched us into the industry of swimrun into the next stratosphere. And more than that, just not taking ourselves so seriously, though, either, which I think you guys have always done a really good job in anchoring, the sport, because it can be pretty stuffy, right? But you guys weekly do a great job of injecting, fun, quips and stories and personalities. So taking us to the podcast, the launch of the podcast, then, what was it? The fact that you guys had so many questions that you couldn't find the answers to anywhere out there in the swimrun industry that, I've got to scratch my own itch?
A lot of it was that, because Attila Catalina was announced sometime in, I guess, fall time in 2019, or maybe even the summer. So we were excited to do that race because that was, again, something that we liked in California,
right?
And it was going to be this cool one that's Attila style and everything.
And we were like, we'll do that one and orcas.
Yeah, let's do them all. And then
it sounds like you were maybe scared shitless, let's say, with Catalina out there, right?
Yeah,
the behemoth that was sitting out there.
And a lot of our friends in the Tri Club had a lot of questions because we were the only people that they knew that had done a swim run, but they were interested in this cool event. So our friends would be asking, what gear do you use? What do you do, this and that? And that's sort of where the idea of the show came in, is like, and we never set out to say, hey, let's do 100 episodes and then whatever, or let's do this. It's like, let's do like 3 or 4 and just see what happens. And we put them out. And at first I think we released every other week or once a month or something, but pretty quickly, like the reception and the feedback we were getting from everybody in the community was like, I guess it was a little bit addicting for sure, because it was like, oh man, this is really I think we hit something pretty good here.
And I think it was a couple. Yeah, so everything that Chipper said, and then we go to Catalina, and the feedback from people was just, it was really surreal. We were just completely humbled and just taken aback by the reactions that people have had, positive, obviously.
Yeah.
We crashed the Attila party, and they didn't kick us out, like a lot of good things were going on. It was really kind of after that where we were like, oh my goodness, like, when we started the show, we were like, hey, let's help grow the sport in the U.S. and let's make it inclusive and welcoming. Like, that was from the beginning. We're like, hey, if we're going to do anything, that's our North Star. Like, that's what we're trying to achieve, is just to help grow the sport. And I think we have to change it, because we're like, yeah, let's help grow the sport in the U.S. But now every time I say that, I'm like, world?
Yeah. Well, it became pretty obvious to you guys, I'd imagine, in at Catalina, how small this community is, and how passionate everyone is. But C, the Swedes speak perfect. They speak better English than we do, and so
they do.
And are craving. Turns out they're also craving, anything that they can, a platform to get exposure for themselves, but also just information, right? And color. But you guys didn't mention that, a pretty big win. The New York Times also quoted you at Catalina.
Yeah.
Fun.
The whole Catalina experience for us was just incredibly surreal, the whole thing. We literally, how many episodes do we have in the bank? Like 6? So we've been doing it for a month and a half, and we go over there, and we're on the ferry. And of course, this is just how we do things. We went on, whatever, Custom Ink, printed up a couple hats and shirts so we could like look the part of pro.
We dare I say, we were like a very kitted out, extremely amateur team. Like, we're like, hey, all you amateurs, like Team Monball, step it up, dude, because the Low Tide boys are kitted out.
Nicholas has I don't think there's any, you can't beat Nicholas, but on the ferry ride to the island, 3 women came over like, are you guys the Low Tide boys? And we're like, oh my God, is this really happening right now? And the whole weekend
show
was
you
like
our
that.
pool buoy?
It was crazy. And we crashed that party at the Attila party, and we were meeting Christopher and Helen from ARC, and Adam Skolnick, the New York Times reporter, and I was just sitting there, I had my hat on backwards, just eating a cheese thing and probably having a beer, and he was like, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh, I actually have a Swimrun podcast. He's like, oh, really? And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he goes, oh, I'm from the New York Times. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, wow, okay, cool. Talk to Chris. He can put a better sentence together for you than I can.
Yeah, I felt like I was his source. He was like, oh, that person, oh, he won the championship last year. Oh, she's awesome, like all this stuff. So it was pretty much like after
in
Catalina.
Those 6 podcasts, in those 6 podcasts, you were really, maybe this is the template for what you did in the lead up to Otelo Worlds this past year, but you really were going to a lot of guests who knew more than you did at that time, whether it was the inside scoop on the course out there. And I think that's really what, we found that beneficial.
Yeah, it was definitely like trying to follow our curiosity, and then when the world went to shit after Catalina, we were saying, oh, this is the 2019 is gonna be like the year of 2020 is gonna be the year of swimrun, like all this stuff. Like episode 1, where like Kelly O'Mara, freaking editor in chief of Triathlete, is this the year of swimrun? She was like, yes. And I'm like, great, because we feel the same way.
Then it's a year of nothing.
It's a year of nothing. But so we kind of made a decision of like, all right, well, there's so many stories to tell. We're super curious about the sport. There's this whole European thing. There's races in Brazil. There's stuff that's happening, and like, why not try to elevate those stories like you would in anything else? Like, I hope the more people know that someone like Desiree Anderson is like, if there's a Hall of Fame of swimrun, if she's not one of the first 3 people first 5 people going in, obviously the original, maybe they count as one, the original 4 count as one. If she's not in the top 3 going in, like, it's a farce. Okay, like, she's an amazing athlete and everything she's been able to do, and she's super nice, and people need to know the story. And like, it's like in, like the Ironman World Championship, like it's the stories of the athletes, it's the stories of the personalities and the teams, whether you're coming in winning or coming in last. I mean, one of my favorite episodes is when we had Rick Mann and his niece, where they came in literally last place at Engadin. I mean, and that was such a great story. So there's a lot to share there, I think. And especially, I think it was during COVID where Chipper and I were like, all right, okay, it looks like we have a part to play in this, just like there's other people, right? Like TSR, there's a lot of folks who are, spending energy to try to help grow the sport. We're just
and highly motivated.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys were, a lifeline of sorts for the swimrun community during COVID. I mean, look, as an event director, we didn't have any chance of putting anything on. Michael and Mats knew the same thing was likely the scenario. So, to really be this lifeline throughout that year, you helped bookend that year, no doubt, with just something to give everyone a chance to look forward to, but also to bring these personalities to the forefront. And, one question I have is, did you have any, it never came across if you did, but were you surprised that kind of these who's who of swimrun athletes, wanted to be on the podcast, were, really were willing to talk about anything? Oscar, a couple weeks before, just laid out his game plan to how he was going to approach Ortula Worlds. I
know.
Does this surprise you at all how open of a book everyone is?
It still does. And I remember the first thing, I'm like, how the hell are we going to book anyone on this show? Like, Chris, like, should we enter? Well, because my other shows is more of a 2-person, just kind of a shoot the shit kind of thing. And so I was like, well, we can just shoot the shit. We do that all the time. So, and Chris is like, well, maybe we'll just make it an interview show. And I'm like, who can we book? Like, we're going to tell them we're the only thing. And even when we were giving out those hats at Attila this year, the Low Tide Boys hats, Adriel grabbed one. He's like, yeah, he like put it on, took a picture, put it on. I'm like, it's just the whole thing. I was still shook when he was super excited to like take a picture with the hat on or take a picture with us or something.
It changed pretty quick. Insane. It was definitely at first, it was like, oh man, do you think we can get these people on the show? And like, and then I think fast forward even a couple months, it was like, we felt pretty confident that we can basically get anyone in sort of the swimrun space on the show, within reason and scheduling and all that stuff. And I mean, honestly, the first quote unquote get for us was Christopher Sundberg from Arc Sports, the first company to reply to a DM. Roca ignored us. Like, people were just like, who the hell are you guys? Yeah. Which I totally valid. I wasn't even mad. I'm not even mad at it, But Arc Sports, they were the first ones to be like, yeah, happy to come on. Let's talk about this stuff. Like, so for us, that's why Arc, they have a special place in our hearts, because they're the first ones to be like, yeah, sure, guys, let's have at it.
Yeah.
And Odyssey, basically them and Odyssey were like the two companies that were like,
well, what I was going to say was, I think the last time I saw you guys in a Head wetsuit, not that you have anything against Head, but was at Catalina. And, after that, you're always rocking, whichever arc suit, fits the conditions best. And,
we're spoiled,
that kind of spoiled for sure. But, that's another aspect of this sport that I think you've, really helped a lot of newbies, for sure, newcomers into the sport. And that includes triathletes who are coming over. They don't want to admit it, but, so many don't know what to do on the gear side. And I'd have to imagine that you guys were in that boat as well. Talk a little bit about how gear fit into the podcast. Did that come naturally, or was that something that, just trial and error, like, look, we're having to figure out as well what kind of works the best? Yeah,
some of that was, getting ready for the Swimrun California in 2018 and then Odyssey in 2018. It was like, okay, how do I see everyone has these pull buoys on their leg, but you can't go to Sports Spaceman, or you can't go to REI, like they don't sell that kind of thing. How do you make this? There was one video on YouTube that actually Head had done, and I basically just copied it. But yeah, I mean, I would say I'm definitely a big gearhead. Chris has 30 pairs of shoes in his garage. I mean, we just are into gear and all sorts of stuff. So that definitely came naturally, especially as the sport tent is the evolution of the gear, especially even from 2018 to now, 3, 4, 5 years later, has just been insane. The evolution of it. And then it was just our own kind of talking through our own experimentation. It was a really good way for us to say, hey, we're trying this out, and we're not trying to act like we know it all either. But it also opened up a really great opportunity for us to connect up with Annie and Brooke of the Swimrun Labs, who we kind of started, we didn't have enough going on. We started a second the Gear Talk show with them.
So that story, I love that story because Chipper and I, we've already been talking about doing something like a gear talk or whatever. And on our runs, we're we should do some gear stuff because people are asking questions.
Always asking gear, what socks, how do you not get blisters,
all that stuff. And kind of going back to what you mentioned before, because of our backgrounds, it's slightly unfair because we're applying sort of professional digital marketing,
expertise
to this. So super easy to find. If you're, our gear guide is the most popular, all this stuff, Chipper's just a wizard about this stuff. So a lot of the content that we put out is this is something that people are searching for in the space and are not finding. So why don't we just give people what they're searching for? So on some level, there is an intention to what we do because we want to be responsive to what people want, but it's also following our own curiosity. So we're thinking about starting this Gear Talk show, and we just happened to interview Annie and Brooke, and we were right after the thing, it's we should ask them if they want to do Gear Talk with us because it's we get the female perspective. They're awesome. It was such a great conversation, and we just, we're just kindred in that way. So that's kind of how it, became another thing, which again, during COVID is when we did most of them. Now it's a little bit more, sporadic.
Yeah.
But yeah,
well,
it was.
But you guys have also morphed, it seems sometimes a podcast is not the way to go, right? I noticed that you guys have started doing more reels, and sometimes there's another channel that works better for dropping product knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I work in digital marketing, so obviously TikTok is very big, and if you just try to kind of force in whatever you think is happening, and if the game's changing around you kind of have to adjust a little bit. And we've definitely seen a lot of growth in the video area as well. I mean, our YouTube channel is still relatively small for YouTube, but I think the growth that we see and the increased engagement on there, especially around a lot of the gear stuff, is pretty promising for sure. But we're just trying to go where it seems like people are, especially who are interested in what we are saying.
So, when you break down kind of what the contents of each episode is with you guys, you do a really nice job of giving credit to those who are part of your Strava club and what's going around in the world of swimrun, and you have a lot of fun with that. What do you notice? Where are people coming from? Downloads, listenership. Is it literally all over the world? Are there pockets that you really, can see? Outside of Sweden, the popularity in Sweden, of course, but where's the listenership coming in from?
Yeah, so we do have all those sort of stats, and surprisingly, about 2/3 of our audience, or over 2/3 of our audience, is in the United States. So 2/3 of our downloads come from the U.S. And then we've been having a little bit of tit for tat on second and third place between the UK and Sweden.
Yeah.
And they're all coming in just above 10%, 11%.
I have it right here.
Okay,
yeah. So in terms of downloads, US is number 1 at 60%. Number 2 right now is Sweden at 11%, but only ahead of the UK by about 800 downloads. So they, as Chipper was saying, they kind of go back and forth, and then the rest is Germany, Canada, Australia, Norway, Netherlands, France, and Belgium in the top 10.
I am surprised that France isn't higher because they were huge.
Speak French, huh?
Yeah, that might be a problem for us.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like, and obviously you took note at Attila Worlds as well, and it seems like the sport is growing in France. It's bursting out of the seams right now. For a sizable country, that has to be a considerable amount of athletes, but maybe they're out doing and not listening.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's also just like English is a second or third language in France isn't as big a deal as it is in other countries. It's like they want to be speaking French over there. But yeah, France is an interesting case study because I would like to see what's happening in France replicated, except for maybe one thing, which I think the jury's out. So essentially the French Triathlon Federation just kind of commandeered Swimrun and took it under its thing and just said, okay, Swimrun is now under the authority of the French Triathlon Federation. So they're the first country to send a quote delegation to Worlds. And I don't know if that's good or bad. I mean, it's good in the sense it'll create some standards and, there's a lot of places to swimrun in France, which is great, which helps. But there's also a ton of places in Germany. They got plenty of lakes up there too. So you think that they might have more events there. So it's interesting what's happening in France, and it's great that they're so super stoked on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wonder about the same thing that you guys do. And, it talks about the growth of the sport, areas where the sport's going to grow or morph. Maybe morph is the better word. Who knows? It'll probably grow naturally. But, you brought it up before, there's super sprint style racing. There's, longer than the one water race, which you guys have covered the last bit of time. There's no right or wrong in this equation. I don't know if it's still it's a sport still in its infancy, of course, because I mean, hell, we spell swim run with a capital S and a capital R, and Herbert does. But of course, we have a reverence for the lady out of Sweden. You guys had her on your podcast.
Oh, Rosenberg.
Yeah,
Erica, who
Erica
developed the word swim run and the spelling, and we understand that as well. But the whole point is everyone's kind of doing it a little bit differently, how it works for them.
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you guys think? Is there a right or a wrong, or is it all okay, or do we need to, tighten up the package, so to speak?
Isn't that in its purest sense of like, we're doing this A to B or A to B, it could be a loop or point to point around nature, in and through nature, and that's like the simplest form of it. So maybe we got to do that a little bit different in the U.S. Maybe in Sweden you have an opportunity to do that a little bit differently, and maybe in France it's a little bit different as well. I think it's sort of, I don't know, that's kind of the beauty that I like about it, is nothing's the same about it. Every time you do it, even if you're doing Casco Bay 4 years, you're not doing the same course 4 years in a row. Everything's a little bit different, and I think that's one of the main things that keeps me coming back and keeps like the itch for me to scratch.
Yeah, it's not like the same exact distance every time. Yeah, I mean, I think like having just done Swimrun NC, I mean, that race was so completely different than any other swimrun you've done. And you're still swim running and stuff, but even the format of it, just like the swimrun business that you do a couple times, and then you're just doing these crazy runs. I mean, I think it's great, and I agree. When we had the high priest of swimrun, Michael Lamel, on, and he was talking about like, oh yeah, it's all good. The super sprint is great. Like, I think if we really want the sport to continue to grow the way it has been, it's almost like you just have to let it grow and not try to put too many guardrails on it. That being said, I'm still kind of a purist, and like the Italian swim run solo world championship, I'm like
aquatic runner or whatever.
Like, that's not my bag, but hey, that's going to help grow the sport. A bunch of our friends did that race and had great results, so we're happy for them. So I mean, as long as people are swim running, I think that's
the way that I always looked at the, 'cause I agree with you. I'm a purist in the way that I like the team aspect of swimrun, but I'm originally from the Midwest, and in the Midwest, if there was two people who did swimrun back when I would started, I'd be amazed. It certainly wouldn't have lived in the same town. Sure. And so, sometimes the team challenge could be quite difficult, to find someone who, shares the same, interest or abilities as you. So, Yeah, it'll be really interesting. And I was glad to hear Michael say that as well, because coming from him, like you said, a founder of the Otolo race, to say that we're early innings here and the sport's going to morph naturally. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
and they're even morphing too. Yeah. I mean, they've introduced the solo category as well, and also and some more kind of younger experiences as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I mentioned a lot on the show is like we're living in the golden age of swimrun. Like we're going to look back, 30 years from now to the way it's going to be like the San Diego triathlon scene was like back in the late 60s, early 70s.
Except none of us are going to have the ripped abs look. Like those
with the Budweiser.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to save anybody. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. But yeah, so I think kind of realizing that you're in that space and kind of enjoying it and being a part of it. I mean, I think we definitely feel like we're a part of it and we're trying to help it along, but obviously, you're doing the same thing by actually putting on events and getting people stoked on, to be giving people the ability to have the experience. Because, there's one thing to do it in practice, but something about going to a race, getting on the boat, the ritual of it. I think it's one of the great things about the sport.
Yeah, we all we all do our part, whether it's in this community, overseas somewhere. We're all doing what we can with what we know and what our skill set is. Going back to, I do want to go back to the end of the 2020 season. Maybe it was even in 2021, but that really seemed like there was a shift in kind of your approach to swimrun from your own. Can you guys talk a little bit about that? What clicked or what decision you guys made that kind of transformed, let's just call it version 2 of the Low Tide Boys.
Low Tide Boys 2.0. Chris and I were just talking about this like a week or two ago, and for us, it was literally the second we crossed the finish line at Catalina, and I mean, I'm speaking for both of us here, we got our asses kicked. Like, we got stomped at that race. I mean, our shoulders were we were way out of shape, and we had been in triathlon, we had both been more competitive and in much better shape, obviously. And that's something about that was just a really defining point that both of us were like, we can do way better at this. And we both wanted to do way better.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of the thing. It's like, okay, that sucked. I loved it. And
let's do it again.
And you know what'll help me love it more? Not having it be a fucking ordeal.
Yeah, like,
if you can actually race it and be tactical, like you do your first 70.3, you're just trying to get through it. But once you've done a couple of those, you really get a sense of what your body's capable of over that distance. And then to do it with a partner and everything, it just was really interesting to me. And like the second we crossed that finish line, I looked at Chipper and I was like, we're coming back next year and we're dropping a ton of time. And pretty much right after that,
that was the fire.
More,
that was the fire
all this
light.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And then with COVID, just gave some opportunity to work on skills. But yeah, I think going into 2021 as when we did, I guess when we finishing 2020, we did the only 2 races in America. We did Catalina and then we did Austin. And Austin was really fun. And I think we raced that pretty well. And it was the first time we were even a little racy. So then going into the next year,
you raced that well, but the moment I remember seeing you though, at Casco Bay. No. I remember seeing you though at Casco Bay. That was where we saw you. You were a changed team.
Oh yeah, that was definitely our coming out party. So basically after Austin, that winter, I was like, okay, my run is fine. I need to work on my biggest weakness, which is swimming, which I think everybody will agree that was my biggest weakness. And I just made it a priority. Like I joined Tower 26 for 3 months, and then we got a coach to basically get us ready, and we just started taking it like way more serious. So when we showed up at Casco, Chipper mentioned this. It's like, we're not sneaking up on anybody anymore, and I think we just had an amazing race.
Yeah, I mean, Casco 2021 was sort of the coming out party, if you will, from that. Austin was a really good race for us, and that was like a little hint of like, we had kind of started tightening things up, obviously being able to work from home took like 2 to 3 hours of my commute out per day, so I had a lot more time for training. And we really were, and at that Austin race in 2020 was like, okay, we got to be a little racy. That was fun. Like, let's do a little bit more of that. And then, then the waterfalls started happening. And we put in pretty much from that November through August, whatever that Casco was, like, that was one of the more solid builds that I've had for an endurance event. And we nearly spooked the Swimrun monks. We startled them at an aid station.
Their paddles,
they left their paddles at the station. We spooked them.
Yeah,
so literally,
for me, that race was awesome, and that last long run on Big Shabig, for me, that was the turning point in the race. That was like 4 hours in, whatever it was, and
I remember seeing you all got to that aid station where eventually you would finish, but you got to that aid station, which would have been about halfway point, and you were all together. You were with Swimrun monks at that time.
Yeah.
And they had the oh shit look on their face, like, wait a second, you're here?
Yeah, because
you guys had the look on your face like, oh, it's
shit, the monks.
It's like, oh, we didn't know it was you guys. Yeah, it was like we weren't expecting to see you guys. Yeah, I mean,
because they beat us. I mean, they were ahead of us by at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at Catalina.
Oh yeah, no, they had an awesome.
So I mean, they had a great race at Catalina. So like, we're like, we have definitely a lot of opportunity here.
I think there's another piece of it too, and this is something, again, I feel like we mentioned this a lot on the show, is our swimrun IQ is super high just by virtue. I mean, this show is selfish in many ways because we're asking the questions that obviously for the World Championship, like, we're asking the questions that we think are going to help us and hopefully helps other people. But for the most part, it's like, it's like, okay, this might help us and hopefully help other people is the way we do it. So going into the Casco, I feel like our level of swimrun intelligence was super high, which I think allows us, and still does, to allow us to punch above our weight class a bit.
Yeah.
Because we can just be really smart. Like, we've thought about transitions, we've thought about like how we're going to use the tether and things like that.
Do you guys ever think? You saw this in Sweden, and we see this every time. But and this is a difference between the U.S. scene and Europe. It is a competitive sport at the tip top, at the point of the spear over there. And there's no American team that I know of who trains like the Europeans train. We just don't think of it in the same capacity as they do. And I'm wondering if there's like if that's kind of the next evolution that we'll see slower here in the U.S., slower taking place. Obviously, we have great talent that comes into the sport, in from people from triathlon who have huge engines or whatever sport they're coming from, but they lack the swimrun IQ that those top European teams would have. And what do you guys notice? Is that a difference that I think does the U.S. eventually catch up to Sweden and Europe, or by the time we catch up on that level, have they already kind of accelerated to the next 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, my impressions when we were in Sweden is one, it's just so much more accessible to do it whenever you want. It seemed to fit more seamlessly within their lifestyle, and they have a more active lifestyle. It seems like it's just, hey, they go run with, ice spikes on their shoes. Like, that's just something they deal with on a regular basis. I feel like 80% of the triathletes, if they're like, ice spikes in my shoes, no thanks. I'm going to the gym. I'll run the treadmill or something. They're just built a little bit differently, I guess. And that was kind of my take on it. And obviously where they live it's just so conducive to, hopping out, and you could do an easy hour little swimrun thing after work, no problem. As if with here, it would take us like an hour just to kind of travel somewhere to get there almost.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And I think that it's also like, if the U.S. is, I agree. I think we talked about this after Attila Lars, where it's like, U.S. is like 5 years behind, in terms of just sort of the development. And I think part of that is access to training, like Chipper mentioned, but it's also access to races. I think if there was more events, like let's say there was like a series of events of the caliber of Casco, where people could really kind of cut their teeth on these races that are super tough and can handle these elements. You just end up going to Europe more prepared to take on those challenges. I think you saw that with like Team Omval Spanfika, like Marcus had been there a bunch of times. Beak had been there a bunch of times, trained super hard together, and they had an amazing result. But you know, it wasn't luck. You know, it's like they put in their dues racing,
definitely,
and putting in the work that way, which I think, you know, it's like the World Championship, like back in the day, the Ironman World Championship, like no one in their 20s was winning it because you need to be someone like Crowe in your 30s, or was like just could handle the mental piece of it. Now it's a little bit different, obviously, but I feel like Swimrun is still like that because there's so many things you need to deal with.
Yeah, it's still kind of an old man sport, you know, with the exception of you know, Max and Hugo, who are rewriting history. But you know, but yeah, you look at the Tour de France, and it's kids in their early 20s who are winning the Tour now. Endurance sports is, you know, on the pointy ends, certainly changed quite a bit. You know, so the World Championships, and you guys had an entire, you know, episode on that. So, you know, don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of that, but just from the outside, how did experiencing the Worlds, you know, a race that you had built up for the better part of an entire year, you know, with researching the show and, you know, talking to past winners and, you know, the training that you guys put into it. How did that experience, you know, how do you see that kind of elevating you guys now? Or, you know, did it motivate you? Did it unmotivate you? You know, where do you guys go post Worlds here? Can we call it Low Tide Boyz?
Well, I think if we're being honest, which we obviously should be, I think I don't think our story post Worlds is exactly the same. Actually, like I think speaking for myself, like I was super like second across the finish line, I'm like, I want to do this again, right? Like I was super stoked, extremely energized. Like even like as soon as it came back to the States, I was already on the bike. I was just like, let's keep this going. Like let's keep this thing going. And for me, a lot of it was such a positive experience. It was such an amazing race that it's like how, you know, just the whole thing. And I think it also put a lot of the stories we've heard from day one into this different context, because now I finally, or, you know, Chipper and I, we'd finally done the course. So when, you know, when Matthew broke his foot coming out of the pig swim, and you're like, oh man, you still finished. That's pretty badass. It's like, no, you have like, it's diabolical. I mean, it's just the baddest ass thing you could ever possibly do. But you only get that perspective if you've been there. I mean, you could hear it, but it's like, no, you don't understand like all the steps this dude had to take. Like just
how many logs he had to jump
and
over.
Still podium.
And the fact that he still ate a Twix bar at the top after breaking his neck.
Crazy. It was so for me, I was like, yeah, my love for the sport, there's a whole new reservoir that's very filled, and I'm, you know, very, very interested in continuing on the journey.
Yeah. I mean, similar to me, I would say after the race, like I was pretty I mean, like when we got back home to the States, like after the race, I'm usually I tend to empty the tank when I go. So I was a little out of it after, but I mean, like, you know, I think we were interviewed and I said, ask me tomorrow, but I already knew deep down inside I was going to say yes. So I just said that to, you know,
for drama,
to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, after the race, like and even before, somehow the show had sort of like, it felt like it had shifted to be this huge buildup, or totally unintentionally, and we never said anything or did anything, but it started becoming like now Attila is like the thing that we're doing for pretty much a year. And when you're like concentrating on multiple aspects of your life, like training, this hobby podcast we have, and everything towards that, like I was just really, really drained after. And it was like, my love and everything of the sport and everybody was still the same, if not even higher than it was before. But I just felt like I was like, I just need a break. Like it was a weird thing for me. But yeah, I guess I'm still kind of dealing with it now. But yeah, that's, it's not the end of the low tide boys for sure, and we're still having a ton of fun doing this. We love racing and everything. And a couple people asked us so they're like, are you guys going to keep doing the show after you do Worlds? And I'm like, what? I'm like, hopefully we haven't been giving that impression off to anybody.
We didn't know
in Sweden you got asked that question. Or?
You can't stop this train, baby.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we got to land this plane. I mean, that's it's gonna happen at some point, but it's not happening anytime soon, I think.
Yeah.
Well, so we're looking ahead to next year to Otelo. I mean, it's I'd imagine that you're banking episodes. There's a ton of work and research that goes into each episode, but then the editing, I can only imagine just the work that you guys are pouring into each of this, which I think I just want to a virtual skull to everyone around the world. I hope they're cheersing the work and the effort that you guys put in. It's remarkable. So 2023, guys, is it too early to talk about what your plans are, or do you have an idea of where you'll be racing and kind of where you want to take the show going into 2023?
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of it's up in the air for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we've not solidified or even really talked about what races. We're like, let's have a great time at Austin, and then we'll see how we're feeling.
Yeah, like literally today, I think I sent you was like, oh, the Lake James race registration is it's getting higher. The next price increase or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of racing, if Otelo ends up happening, that'll obviously be the A race again, and sort of our season will kind of be built up around it. For me, I probably won't try not to race as much. I mean, we'll have done 5 swim runs this year, which is just a long time. I mean, there's a bunch in California. We'll do all of those, but we'll probably race a little bit less and be a little bit more picky and just have it either be like a merit race or something that's going to prepare us. So I think it's safe to say that we're coming back to Casco, just because if we are doing Worlds, then that's it'd be kind of silly not to do that race.
And too, I mean, this year we had the first time experiencing our families hanging out with us, and our kids are getting old enough to where they have interest in what we're doing. They have the most low tide boy stickers in their school on their binders and water bottles and stuff. But yeah, at the Folsom race we did that. So I mean, when we go to these races, it's kind of demanding, right? There's a lot of things for us to be doing and thinking about, and we don't quote unquote work. Like, we don't record interviews with people, but we're doing the shakeouts. We're trying to have a good race ourselves, so there's a little bit of that. But I think we want to try integrating the family bit, or making a trip one be more of like a family kind of style trip, which will totally shift the dynamics of that. And maybe we won't be able to go and give a race like the 100%, but because the family will there, and that's a little bit of a different kind of dynamic and everything. But that's one aspect as well that I think will probably shift a little bit as the kids get a little bit older and can travel a little easier.
It'll just be easier, especially our sons. Like,
I don't think
they get.
And I don't think a lot of people understand how difficult it is to do what you guys do. I worked in the publishing industry with the magazines for a long time. I loved racing. And so I tried to thread that needle as well. And, when you're working up to the point of when the gun goes off, you're not having the same pre-race preparation that everyone else is.
Yeah.
It's a very unique preparation. And I can only imagine at Worlds, you're getting pulled every which way by all these people who you've had on the show and everyone who's been listening to the show. And, that's only going to continue, as 2/3 of the listeners are from the US. That's only going to continue when you go to American races. And you guys have done whatever you've figured out seems to be working well. And so I guess keep doing it. But it's a very challenging thing to do what you guys do. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, well,
do you get excited by that though? Is there an energy that comes with
totally.
that?
100%.
So yes, it is demanding. I think one of the ways that Chipper and I have sort of reconciled that is by just making it part of our experience. And hey, when people come up to us and want to take a photo with us, or thank us, like, we are just so we're amazed. We're still amazed that
Yeah,
anyone
we're still in
listens
shock.
and that people find value in it. I mean, when someone says, "Oh, we heard this thing and we had a totally great race," we're like, "Whew, mission accomplished. Can die in peace now." Like, great. Like, that's all we want to do for that on that individual level. So going to Sweden and going to Worlds, like, yeah, you're being pulled in all these directions, but it's like a tractor beam that you're just allowing yourself to get pulled, because it's like, you know, how could you not want to like spend some time with Rasmus or Frederic, who drove like across the whole country to have lunch with us? I mean, it's just really, really endearing, and it just makes you want to keep working harder to put out a good product. And again, because it's just kind of like part of the thing. It's not like an extra pressure. I mean, sure, putting it on blast that we're doing Worlds and we're letting everyone know what's happening. I mean, there's certain pressure like built into that, but we're also like, we're just going to do the best we can. And I think our heads are screwed on right in that respect, where sure, we have egos like everybody else, but it's not like we don't have any delusions.
Yeah. So I just have 3 more questions. Just
okay. Are they getting progressively harder?
I don't know. I mean, see, the way that these questions have kind of been going is that there's a question, but then there's the, you know, A and point 1 of question, you know. So, but you do have a massive bucket list of events that you want to go to. Yeah. Obviously, living in California does not allow you to. It is a very difficult state to travel from to go do swim run in Europe typically, but you got to pick one, guys. And let's just say Otelo Worlds outside, because you know, just put that one on the calendar. It's one that everyone wants to shoot for. But what's the biggest bucket list race out there of all that, you know, you've either been researching or talked to race directors of? You know, which race will you do?
I think,
you know, before the swim run journey.
I think we have the same answer. I don't know if Chris is gonna believe this or not, but I would say Attila Inkaden is probably like, gonna be pretty high up there.
Yeah, I think Eggeden for sure. Rockman is also. I'm curious about that one, just because it's, again, it's where are you going to do a swim run like that? Nowhere else. But I'm also curious. Like, I really want to go to Portugal to do some of Bruno Safara's races, because I mean, sort of tropical-esque swim running. I mean, shit, like sign me up. So amazing. I mean, we joke about the bucket list, but it's there probably aren't enough years in our lives to be able to do all the races. And you know, one idea that I've keep tossing to Chipper is we go and do Attila Can and then drive up the coast and then do Côte d'Azur the next weekend. I mean, something like that I think
that's
allows us to do more. Like if we want to go to the UK, we want to experience, you know, say hi to our fans there and do some of those local races, and we could time it so we can do a couple. That'd probably be ideal.
Yeah, that would be.
What I'm definitely hearing is you live in the wrong continent.
Yeah,
yeah, it sounds like, or at least on the wrong coast for traveling to Europe, for sure. Yeah.
No, it's so true though. I mean, you could be blind, deaf, and stupid, and still end up in just an awesome swim run venue in Europe.
Yeah, totally.
Seems like.
Yeah, we.
So you know, I'm not. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, just you know, we're trying to also stay married through this whole ordeal as well. So, you know, we definitely try to jam in and jam out for the races and everything, to not stick the wives with the kids for too much longer. But yeah, if we can get the calendars to align on some sort of European parlay, multi-race, you know,
tour,
7 to 9 days or to 12 days or something, then I think that would be a high probability of happening if we can, you know, figure that out.
The other thing with European races is, and you guys saw this at Worlds, is there's a different level of comfort that race directors have in putting the events on. Yeah. There's an element of risk that they're okay with, and that athletes are okay with, that we don't quite have over here, at least. Mm-hmm. You know, there's events, actually any of the Otelo events I've done, they wouldn't happen over here.
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
Not in the form and fashion. But I mean, geez, that's why as an American, if you have the opportunity, they are just next level.
Yeah.
It's a whole new world.
Yeah, I mean, and it was great. I think for our swim run journey, I think it was really important. I mean, whether it was Worlds or something else, but going to Europe and doing a race. I mean, the fact that we did like the holiest of holies, Mecca trek or whatever is awesome. But it could have been Engadin, it could have been Cannes, it could have been Malta. I mean, it really just doing something over there. I think in many ways, like having a decent race, kind of just solidified a lot of things for us. So it's like, oh yeah, we don't totally suck at this. Oh yeah, this is super fun, and oh yeah, like it's so great to experience it in its sort of like original element.
It's everything it's hyped up to be.
Yeah.
So another impossible question, because I did get about 10 events that you guys said that you have to do when we asked for one, but that's okay.
I gave you one. But, Chris is the problem.
I am the problem.
But you said, hey, you knew that you were going to be his teammate.
Yeah, that's true. He's not doing them solo.
Hell no.
You got to pick, are there any past episodes that just jump out at you as that interview with XYZ was inspiring, electrifying? Like who sticks out at you as just being the most fun or entertaining or, exposed at all interview that you had out there?
Man, that's a good question.
There's such different kinds of interviews,
I will say we hit it off with pretty much everybody. I mean, or at least that's my perception. Hopefully, I feel like 99% of these, like, we're like, that was a great time. We had a great chat with them. I do think Erica Rosenbaum, after that episode, I was like, she seems like the nicest person I've ever met. Like, she just seems like the sweetest person. But there was a lot, a lot of them do stick out to us in different ways. I will also echo what Chris said about having Christopher Sundberg on episode 4 or 6 or something. We actually had some technical difficulties, and me and Chris had to share a mic, so we would literally hold it and pass it back to who was going to answer the question. It was
like I'd pre-written all sorts of questions, like it was a fucking deposition, like, okay, you asked that one, I'll ask this one. We're trying to be super pro about it, and now we don't do any of that stuff.
And and we talked to Michael Lamel, but we waited a little bit for that one until we felt like, I don't know why we waited so long, but it felt right when we did it, and that was a great conversation as well.
Again, they
so
fall
many.
into different buckets, like Susie Moonen too, when we had her on for the countdown show, Mr. and Mrs. B. In terms of a team, they've been so super supportive of us, and then like they go to Worlds to volunteer and get to like hang out with them and see them on the court. It was great. Some of those early ones like Better Tethered Together, episode 12. That one's falling off the top 10, but that one's still like, you want an endearing story of teamwork and resilience, and also poop. That's
episode
the one.
12's for you.
That's a story you're not going to be forgetting anytime in the near future.
Yeah.
That definitely puts you on the spot when you've had so many great guests who you love for all different sorts of reasons. But maybe an easier question to ask would be, who do you guys want on the podcast, whether it's someone directly involved in the sport right now, or, who would be a good get for someone who kind of that dream list that's out there? What names are floating out there?
Rich Roll.
Yeah, I would say Rich Roll for sure.
He doesn't return our emails yet.
We got to send it from the official account, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think Rich Roll for sure. Obviously, I went back and listened to his race report that he had, the race that him and Chris Hoth did, and they did in 2017. Obviously, a stark contrast of the weather situation that we had this year. But, I genuinely, Rich seems very into Swimrun, and he seems really into it. And I don't think he, Adam Skolnick, who he has on some of his shows, knows about it as well. But I think it seems like it would be fun for him just to chat only about Swimrun for a bit there. But that would probably be the top one that I can think of now.
Do you think Swimrun continues in obviously not to put too much pressure on a guy like Rich's shoulders, even though maybe we should put more pressure onto his shoulders, but like, do more people come into Swimrun or hear about Swimrun, when they hear about, him? I know he just had Gordo on, who you guys had Gordo on as well. They both talked about their experiences with Swimrun and, what a great experience it was and wanting to have future experiences. Does that help our sport out as well when, they're
I think before people are telling stories about it, I think, I don't know if it's coming back, but when livesports.se was out there interviewing people and just like helping share the stories. I mean, people are coming to the sport in a bunch of different ways. Some of it is through books, some of it's through YouTube at 2:30 in the morning, some of it's through memes or whatever, or a buddy in their tri club. And I think it's just important to just have as much information out for people to be able to discover it and then make an intelligent decision about whether they want to do it or not. And so far, a lot of the people that have been putting out content consistently, I think, are doing it the right way and are really trying to grow the sport in its sort of in its best, putting its best foot forward in terms of being welcoming and all that stuff. But I mean, I think if Rich wanted to do, I think he's already done a lot. I'm sure a lot of his passive listeners at least know what Swimrun that it exists, which is something in and of itself.
We're in the phase of like no press is bad press for Swimrun. Like any awareness that you can drive is going to be good, and we know, and Lars, you're not really going to have a bad time. Yeah. Like you just come out and you do it, you're sort of fit, you're going to have a good time out there. So if it's Rich, if it's the Iron Cowboy who also did Catalina, I know he was supposed to do the World Champs as well, but I guess that fell through or whatever. But or if it's that Katie,
Katie, absolutely,
the Go Ruck World Champion, Tough Mudder Ultra Champion. A lot of these sort of like tangential super athletes, they have their own sort of echo chambers that they drive, and if we can sort of start expanding the circle of Swimrun through awareness with these other sort of tangential people, that's going to be one of the things I think that really helps. That and more actual races or places for people to go and do these events.
Yeah. So Rich Roll, that was pretty unanimous. Do you have another name out there that would also, that's on that kind of that hit list too? Or
I mean, for me, I mean, we try to get Anders Malm
one of the
for a
original
while.
four.
So like, I would love to tell like a very detailed, like original four story and just like have that be, I mean, in many ways, this show is just like it's like a history, it's like a history collection device on some level, because we want to tell some of these old stories. We think they're interesting, and people should know the history of the sport and stuff like that. So I would really love to get either all four. I know one of them doesn't want anything to do with it, but get like a really detailed, like almost like you're writing like the history of Swimrun chapter 1. Like, let's get that story and get all the flavor, all the feelings about it. I think that would be really great.
Yeah, that is something that we've wanted to do for a bit too.
Well, great. Well, I think we answered a question that you guys typically wrap up your show with already, which is, how can we, help grow the sport? But I'm going to ask it to you anyways, because, I know that you write awesome show notes as well, and we can just go directly to it. But, what's one thing that, we can all do to help grow the sport?
I mean, for just the average Joe or Jane, I think getting one person to just try it out with you, and whether that's going to your local, whatever, aquatic park for us in San Francisco, just put a little shout out on Strava or your Instagram, just like, hey, come join me, or find somebody who has a little niggle of interest and just grab that person. And then all you need to really do is have them do it once or twice, or a couple legs or a couple transitions, and I feel like they'll understand and they'll get the bug. Like for me, I've always kind of felt like you just gotta, our job is to get them to do their first few steps, and once they get out of that first transition or two, the sport sells itself, so to speak. That's how we've always felt about it.
I mean, totally, I agree with that 100%. And I would just kick it back to the godfather of Swimrun, Andy Hewitt, basically his rules of Swimrun, which he put on the back of his sweatshirts, which is like, number 1, tell everyone about Swimrun. Check. 2, greet everyone you see while running. 3, stay with your teammate during runs and swims. 4, dog in and out of the swims. And 5, no complaining ever. Like, I think if you just do what, like,
I broke that last rule though.
Like 1 and 2, if you can just do 1 and 2 of that, and just, you know, like, we definitely experienced that in aquatic park where we train. People stop us and ask us questions all the time, and we're just like, sure, is it messing up our interval or whatever? We'll always stop and answer questions. And it's like, oh, you want to know why our zipper's in the front? We'll tell you. And I think if that's the attitude that everyone has, and just really tries to make it as welcoming, as inclusive, as diverse, as accessible as possible, we'll be just fine.
Yep.
Well, you know, as long as Chipper keeps taking those beer handouts from time to time in a race.
I didn't even do one of those this year, though.
I know. Well, opportunity didn't present
itself. It didn't present itself. I would have probably.
I think you popped a Coors at Casco Bay one year. You know, athletes, swim runners don't take themselves so seriously. You know, we're all eating Twix at the World Championships.
Yeah.
You know, you guys have just been stewards of the sport. You know, 150 episodes in. Congratulations for that.
Cheers.
You know, I would love to be here to interview you guys at episode 300 or 500. You know, both of those. And, you know, guys, thank you. We're just week in, week out. We're looking forward to hearing what you guys come up with next. So thanks for the time tonight and for sharing a small glimpse into your swim run journey, which we know is going to keep growing.
Well, Lars,
Thanks,
Lars. We have to thank you right back. I mean,
Yeah.
You've been supportive of us since the beginning. You were picking up where we're putting down. I mean, we started this thing. It was like there was a swim run tent, and we just crashed it. We just crashed the party with memes and
Shot
and the
out of
whole
a cannon, though.
and yeah, I mean, you were one of the first to be like, "This is great. This is
Yeah.
awesome." So thank you so much for supporting us through 150 episodes and however many extra
beyond.
episodes and stuff. And yeah, we're big fans of Odyssey, and yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's room on the boat the next time we go out to Catalina as well. So,
Where is that thing
right?
docked at anyway?
Docked in Long Beach, just waiting for him to put it back on. All right, guys, thank you.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swim run activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Other
Way
stuff.
Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim,
Go for a run,
then another swim,
then another run,
and then another swim.
and then another run.
And then just keep going until you're done.
So you're done. Or maybe can't
And then
stop, won't
stop.
stop.